and I work for a program called the Katie Brown Educational Program. Before we start today's presentation, just a quick warning that the subject matter we will be discussing is sensitive. If there are any children in the room, our advice is that they go over to that room there. That is where we have some people who can watch them. Again, this is a sensitive subject matter. If there are any children in the room, we advise that they go to that room during the presentation. All right. So,
that's okay, I will. So, the only other warning that we would like to give is that this presentation may not only be sensitive for children. Many of us have experienced things related to sexual violence and abuse. And if gaining the trust of the child, and they are testing boundaries. Many groomers try to become an important figure in the child's life. This could look like becoming a mentor, becoming a like cuddling, tickling, asking for massages, sleeping in the same bed, and also creating situations where nudity can naturally occur. Again, many your child says even one small thing, like, I don't want to go to my cousin's house anymore, that could be a sign there is something more. We should listen carefully. Tell the child you believe them. It is important to know that there are many reactions a child or anyone might have to experiencing abuse. This could look like an increased interest in sex. The child could even want to continue seeing the offender. The child may be afraid to report. It is common for a child to shut down, freeze up, or sometimes even stop speaking. It is actually normal for the child to act as though they do not care about the assault. And we also see a response that we call the fawn response. Instead of freezing up or acting afraid, sometimes abused children actually seem energetic and eager to please. This is also a normal reaction to abuse. Just in the interest of time, we are going to skip a couple slides just to make sure we can get to some important information at the end. Because it is important that we talk about protective factors. We are going to talk about the best things you can do to keep your child safe. Even though many of us naturally feel uncomfortable with this topic, when we talk to our children about what safe and unsafe adults look like, they are much more likely to recognize it. We can talk about warning signs without talking about explicit details. For example, telling a child, no one should ever ask you to keep a secret from me. You're just a kid, and that is too much to ask of you. Nothing explicit, nothing graphic, still keeping your child safe. We should explain safe and unsafe gifts to our children, because gifts are frequently used by abusers to gain closeness. different